Prologue. The Approach. The pioneer's dream, after 27 years of silent travel through the void, finally neared its destination. The ship, once vibrant with the hustle of departure, now hummed with a different kind of energy, one of anticipation mixed with the weight of history. Commander Alara Vance stood at the command deck, her gaze fixed on the approaching planet. Proxima Centauri B, a muted blue and green orb, was their new hope.
"This is it,"
she said, her voice barely above a whisper, yet it carried the weight of their journey.
"The moment we've been living for."
Beside her, Dr. Adrian Locke peered through the viewport, his scientific curiosity almost palpable.
"Look at that atmosphere,"
he muttered, more to himself than anyone else.
"So many unknowns, so much to learn."
Mira Chen, the chief engineer, was monitoring the ship's systems with an eagle eye, ensuring every component was ready for what was to come.
"Engines are at standby. We'll need to time this perfectly,"
she announced, her voice steady but with an undercurrent of excitement. James O'Donnell, the historian, was busy recording every detail of this historic moment. His camera captured the planet's image, but his voice was for posterity.
"We are on the verge of rewriting human history. Here, in this moment, we are all pioneers."
And then there was Elias Chen, the young man who knew Earth only through the tales of others. Born on this ship, the concept of home was as foreign to him as the planet they were about to orbit. He stood quietly, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and trepidation.
"Will it feel like home?"
Elias asked, his voice tinged with the innocence of someone who had never known any other world. Ilara turned to him, her expression softening.
"Home is where we make it, Elias. It's not just about where we come from, but where we're going, and we're going to make this our home."
The ship's thrusters fired in precise bursts, guided by Mira's expert hands.
"Orbital insertion in 3, 2, 1.
The Pioneer's dream shuddered slightly as it entered orbit around Proxima Centauri B, transitioning from a vessel of passage to a sentinel in the sky. Adrian, unable to contain his excitement, exclaimed,
"We've done it! We're in orbit! Now the real work begins!"
His hands were already moving to initiate scans of the planet below. James continued to document.
"From this day forward, we are not just explorers, but settlers. This is the beginning of new dawn."
Elias looked out at the planet, his heart beating in sync with the ship's hum. The stories of Earth, of oceans and forests, filled his mind. But here was a new canvas, a new story to tell.
"I want to be part of that story,"
he said, a resolve forming within him. The pioneer's dream settled into its role as a permanent satellite, its engines silent, its purpose now to support life on the ground below. Commander Vance spoke over the intercom, her voice echoing through the ship.
"Today, we begin our new chapter. This is day 0 of New Dawn. Let's greet our new home."
As the planet below awaited them, the crew of the Pioneer's dream prepared to descend, each carrying dreams, fears, and the legacy of Earth into the unknown. Chapter 1. First Light on New Dawn. The shuttle's engines roared, their sound slicing through the silence of space as the craft descended into the atmosphere of Proxima Centauri B. Elias Chen pressed his face against the viewport, his heart beating a frantic rhythm against his chest. Below him, the planet transformed from a distant orb into a complex tapestry of land and sky, more vibrant than any story he'd been told. Elias, who had known no home but the pioneer's dream, felt a mix of trepidation and exhilaration. The gravity tugged at him differently, a subtle reminder that simulations could never fully prepare one for reality. As they descended, the first glimpses of their new home unfurled before him, vast plains, jagged mountains, and the promise of water shimmering in the distance. With a gentle thud, the shuttle settled onto the alien soil, sending up a cloud of dust unlike any on Earth. Commander Ilara Vance was the first to step out, her movements deliberate, her face a mask of both command and wonder.
Welcome to New Dawn,
She announced, her voice carrying the weight of history. Elias followed, his steps hesitant, the gravity heavier than he was used to. Each footfall was a declaration of presence on this new world. Looking up, he saw the sky, not blue but a deep violet, lit by the dim red light of Proxima Centauri. Beside him, Dr. Adrian Locke was already at work, his hands moving with the precision of a man driven by curiosity.
This is incredible.
He murmured, his eyes wide as he collected samples.
The composition here, it's like nothing we've seen.
Mira Chen, the ship's engineer, was methodically checking the shuttle's systems, her eyes darting between the readouts and the alien environment.
Let's ensure we have a way back if we need it.
She said, casting a cautionary glance towards Elias, a silent reminder of the unknowns they were now part of. James O'Donnell, with his camera always at the ready, captured the moment.
This is history,
He whispered, more to himself than anyone, ensuring that every step, every expression, would be recorded for posterity. Luna Martinez knelt by a patch of alien flora, her excitement palpable.
I think this might be compatible with Earth plants.
She said, her voice trembling with possibilities. Her role was to begin the process of terraforming, to make this alien land hospitable for human life. Dr. Samuel Lee set up a makeshift medical station, his gaze sweeping the horizon for any sign of life or danger. His primary concern was the health of the crew in this new environment, a guardian of their well-being. Nia Patel, the geologist, sketched the outlines of the rocky formations with her eyes, eager to delve into the planet's geological secrets.
We need to map this,
She declared, her mind already on the surveys that would reveal New Dawn's hidden past. Elias, amidst the flurry of activity, felt a profound sense of purpose. Here he was not just a bystander, but an active part of this grand narrative. He collected stones, small tokens of this new world, each one a testament to his journey from the stories of Earth to the reality of New Dawn. The day was spent erecting temporary shelters, setting up communication with the pioneer's dream in orbit, and beginning the initial explorations of their surroundings. As the sun of Proxima Centauri began to set, casting long, eerie shadows, Elias found himself sitting on a rock, watching the first sunset of his life here. The colors were different, the air foreign, but there was a beauty in the newness, a promise of beginnings. Around him, his companions, now his family, worked with the fervor of those building not just a camp, but a community. Elias knew this was just the first day, the opening chapter of what would be an epic saga. With the stars appearing in the now dark sky, he felt a resolve forming within him. Here on this alien world, he would carve out his place, find his purpose, and perhaps discover what it truly meant to be home. Chapter 2. Building New Dawn. The second day on Proxima Centauri B was marked by a collective sense of purpose as the settlers of New Dawn began to weave the fabric of their new community. The fear and mystery of the unknown were momentarily set aside, replaced by the tangible work of creating a home under an alien sky. With the sun casting a gentle red glow over the landscape, the camp buzzed with activity. Commander Alara Vance moved among her people, her leadership a beacon of stability and vision. She coordinated the construction of more permanent structures. Her voice ringing clear over the morning's hustle.
By the end of the week, I want to see our first habitat completed. Let's make this our home.
Mira Chen, the engineer, was at the heart of this transformation. She oversaw the assembly of modular habitats, each piece fitting together like a puzzle of humanity's resilience. The sound of tools, the hum of machinery, and the occasional laughter of the crew filled the air as they worked. Mira's skill and foresight ensured that each structure was not just functional, but designed to withstand the planet's unique conditions. Dr. Adrian Locke had turned his attention to the natural world around them. He was cataloging flora, his scientific curiosity driving him to understand and harness the potential of this alien ecosystem. He spoke with excitement to anyone who would listen.
This planet could revolutionize botany. Just look at these specimens. They might yield new medicines, new foods.
The hydroponic farm, an idea championed by Luna Martinez, was starting to take shape. Rows of planters were set up, filled with soil from Earth mixed with local components, creating a hybrid environment for Earth plants to thrive. The air was filled with the scent of soil and the faint, hopeful green of new growth.
We'll have our first harvest soon,
Luna predicted, her optimism infectious. James O'Donnell, the historian, documented everything. His camera captured the essence of their endeavor, the joy of creation, and the bonds forming between settlers.
This is our story, our legacy,
He narrated, his voice filled with awe as he recorded the day's progress. Dr. Samuel Lee continued to set up the medical facilities, ensuring that health and well-being were prioritized. He organized regular checkups, his calm demeanor reassuring to all.
We're in a new world, but our health remains our priority,
He reminded everyone, his words a comfort against the backdrop of the unknown. Nia Patel was out in the field, her geological surveys expanding as she mapped out the area for potential resource exploitation or hazard avoidance. She returned each evening with samples, her excitement palpable as she shared her findings.
There's so much we don't know yet, but every rock tells us a bit more about our home.
Elias Chen, feeling the weight of his role grow, helped wherever needed, his hands dirty from the day's work. He spoke with everyone, learning, listening, and contributing ideas. As the day drew to a close, he sat with the settlers around a newly built fire pit. Sharing stories from Earth, mingling them with dreams of what New Dawn could become. The community was taking form, not just through structures, but through shared meals, laughter, and the collective effort towards a common goal. As night fell, the camp was an island of light in the darkness, a beacon of human endeavor. The stars of Proxima Centauri watched over them, silent witnesses to the birth of a new society. Elias looked around, seeing not just a camp, but a community forming. People finding their roles, their places. Here, in the shadow of alien mountains, under a sky of unfamiliar stars, they were building more than just shelters. They were crafting a future, a new chapter in human history. Chapter 3. Echoes of the Past. The third day on New Dawn was warm under the red sun, and the camp had taken on the rhythm of a small, burgeoning community. After a morning spent expanding the water purification system, Elias Chen found a moment to rest, his gaze catching the familiar figure of Mira Chen adjusting some wiring on one of the new habitats.
Mira, got a minute?
Elias called out, his voice carrying over the sounds of the camp. Mira looked up, brushing a strand of hair out of her eyes, her face lighting up with a small smile.
Of course, Elias. What's on your mind?
They walked away from the main activity. Finding a quiet spot near where the first crops were starting to sprout in the hydroponic farm. The air was filled with the promise of life, a stark contrast to the void of space they had left behind. Sitting down, Elias picked up a small stone, turning it over in his hands.
I was just thinking, we've come so far from where we started, literally and figuratively. Do you ever think about Earth?
Mira nodded, her eyes distant for a moment.
Every day, but it's different for me. I left a lot behind.
Elias looked at her, understanding in his eyes.
You've never really talked about your brother Kai. I know he was important to you.
Mira sighed, the memory a sharp pang in her chest.
He was my anchor. We did everything together before the mission. He was supposed to be here, you know? He was an engineer too, but...
Her voice trailed off. Elias placed a comforting hand on her shoulder.
I'm sorry, Mira. I didn't mean to bring up painful memories.
No, it's okay.
She reassured him, offering a sad smile.
It helps to talk about him sometimes. Kai died during the journey, a malfunction in the cryo chamber. It was unexpected.
We can't open it!
I guess part of me still thinks he's here with us, guiding us in his own way.
Elias nodded, his own thoughts drifting to the stories of Earth he'd only heard.
I was born on the pioneer's dream. Earth is just stories to me. But through your stories, through everyone's, I feel like I know it. Kai's part of that story now, for all of us.
Mira looked at Elias, seeing the boy who had grown up in space, yet carried such an understanding of human connection.
You remind me of him, you know. That same curiosity, that drive to understand. Maybe that's why I've always felt I could talk to you about him.
Elias smiled, touched by the comparison.
Thank you, Mira. I wish I could have met him. But in a way, through you, I feel like I have.
They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the camp and the whispering of the new plants around them, creating a peaceful backdrop.
I think,
Elias began,
we're all carrying pieces of our past here. It shapes how we build our future. Kai would be proud of what we're doing here, of what you're doing.
Mira's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but her smile was genuine.
He would. And you, Elias, you're doing more than just building. You're leading. He'd have liked that.
As they stood to return to their duties, the bond between them felt strengthened, not just by shared work, but by shared history, by the echoes of the past that lingered in the heart of New Dawn. They walked back to the camp side by side, each step a testament to human resilience and the enduring power of memory in the face of the new and unknown. Chapter 4: Shadows of Memory. The fourth day on New Dawn was marked by a peculiar sense of calm. The routine of building and exploring had settled into a rhythm, but beneath the surface there was an undercurrent of something unknown. As the sun of Proxima Centauri painted the sky in hues of deep violet and red, Mira Chen was once again at the water purification plant, her hands busy with maintenance tasks. The water purification system was a marvel of engineering, a testament to human ingenuity in the face of an alien environment. The main tank was a massive cylindrical structure, its surface gleaming under the alien sun. It was constructed from a composite material, translucent enough to hint at the aqua within, yet robust enough to withstand the pressures of this new world. Tubes and pipes, like silver arteries, connected to the tank, ensuring a constant flow of water through filtration systems hidden beneath the ground. The water inside, once murky from the planet's unique minerals, now flowed clear, a symbol of their ability to harness and adapt to this world. Mira, with her short practical hair dyed a vibrant red to combat the monotony of space, was no stranger to hard work. Her frame was lean but strong, built from years of physical labor in the confines of the ship, and now in the open expanses of New Dawn. Her eyes, sharp and observant, missed no detail as she checked the filters and pressure gauges. But today, her focus was disrupted by a shadow moving across the water's surface. There, in the reflection, was Kai, her brother. He was as she remembered him, a muscular Asian man with a short, well-groomed beard, his features sharp and his gaze intense, even through the water's distortion. His presence was so vivid that for a moment, Mira thought he had somehow followed her here. Kai's reflection was clear, his muscles defined under his simple workshirt, the kind he wore on the pioneer's dream. His hair was cut short, military style, a choice he'd made for practicality, yet it framed his face in a way that was uniquely him.
Kai?
Mira whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of joy and disbelief. He turned to her, his image in the water undulating gently.
"You're doing great, Mira,"
he said, his voice carrying the same comforting tone she missed so dearly. His reflection moved with a natural ease, as if he was standing right beside her, looking down into the water tank with interest. For a moment, everything else faded. The sounds of the colony, the alien breeze, all were drowned out by the impossible reality of her brother's presence. She reached out, her hand hovering above the water, afraid to disrupt the vision.
"You always did worry too much about the small things."
Kai continued, his reflection moving slightly as if he was really there, looking at her.
"Focus on what's ahead. You're not alone here."
Tears welled up in Mira's eyes. She wanted to argue, to tell him how much she missed him, how his absence had left a void no amount of work or new beginnings could fill. But she couldn't find the words, her throat tight with emotion.
"I know, Mira. I'm always with you."
Kai said, his voice softening.
"But you need to look forward now. You have a new family here, a new purpose."
The image began to waver, the water's surface disturbed by a gentle breeze. As if sensing his time was short, Kai smiled one last time, his beard catching the light in a way that made him look both familiar and otherworldly.
"Keep building, Mira. Keep dreaming."
Then as quickly as he had appeared, Kai's reflection was gone. The water in the tank was just water once more, reflecting only her own face now, tear-streaked and confused. Mira sat back, her mind racing. Was it a hallucination, a trick of the light, or something more, something this new world was capable of? She wiped her eyes, her hands trembling. She felt a mix of sorrow and an odd sense of peace. It was as if Kai had come to give her his blessing, to remind her of the strength she carried within. She stood, taking a deep breath of the alien air, feeling the weight of her brother's words. She knew she had to share this, not the sight of Kai, but the message he had conveyed. She needed to tell Elias, to perhaps share this burden, this mystery that seemed to be wrapping itself around their new life. As she walked back to the camp, the setting sun casting long shadows, Mira felt a resolve firm within her. Whatever this planet was doing to her mind, whether it was a gift or a warning, she would face it. For Kai, for the memory of her brother, and for the future of New Dawn, she would keep building, keep dreaming, and keep moving forward. Chapter 5. Shadows and Skepticism. The morning of the 5th day was crisp, the air carrying a hint of the planet's unique tang. Mira Chen felt the weight of her experience from the previous day like a stone in her stomach. She knew she couldn't keep it to herself any longer. After the morning briefing, she approached Commander Alara Vance, who was overseeing the construction of a new communication array.
Commander, can we talk?
Mira asked, her voice steady but her eyes betraying a hint of the turmoil within. Alara glanced at her, her expression serious.
Of course, Mira. What's on your mind?
Taking a deep breath, Mira spoke.
Yesterday, when I was at the water purification plant, I saw my brother Kai. He spoke to me, through his reflection in the water.
Alara's eyebrows lifted, skepticism clear in her eyes.
Kai? Mira, I understand you've been under a lot of stress, but...
I know how it sounds, Commander.
Mira interjected, her voice firm.
But it was more than stress. He was there, clear as day, talking to me. He told me to keep building, to look forward.
Alara studied Mira, her gaze searching for signs of fatigue or strain.
Mira, you know how important clarity is in our situation. Hallucinations, visions, they're not uncommon under stress, especially with what we've all been through.
I'm not saying it's not possible.
Mira conceded.
But this felt different. It wasn't just in my head. It was like he was really there.
Alara nodded slowly, her mind working through the implications.
We need to ensure you're okay. I think it's best if you talk to Dr. Lee. We can't afford to overlook anything that might compromise our mission or your health.
Mira agreed, though a part of her felt defensive.
I understand. I needed to report it.
The two walked to the medical tent where Dr. Samuel Lee was organizing his daily checkups. Alara explained the situation succinctly, her tone neutral. Dr. Lee looked at Mira with concern.
Mira, we've all been through a lot. Sometimes our minds can play tricks on us, especially in such an unprecedented environment. Have you felt any other symptoms? Headaches, dizziness?
No, nothing else.
Mira replied, her frustration mingled with worry.
It was just this one moment.
We'll run some tests,
Dr. Lee decided, motioning for her to sit.
We need to rule out any physical causes, dehydration, or perhaps something in the environment. And from a psychological standpoint, we'll need to monitor you. Sometimes, grief can manifest in ways we don't expect, especially here.
Mira sat for the tests, her mind replaying the encounter with Kai. She knew how it sounded, like a mind under stress, but the experience felt too real, too vivid to be dismissed as mere hallucination. After the physical examination, Dr. Lee spoke, his voice gentle yet firm.
Your physical health seems fine, but we need to take this seriously. I want you to come back for some more in-depth psychological evaluations over the next few days. We'll keep this under observation, Mira.
Elara, who had been standing by, added,
And Mira, if you see anything else, or if anything like this happens again, you report it immediately. We're in this together, but we need to understand what's happening. If there's something about this planet we don't know, we need to find out.
Mira nodded, feeling both cared for and scrutinized. She left the tent with a promise to return for further evaluation, her mind a whirl of doubt, hope, and the lingering echo of her brother's voice urging her forward. As she walked back to her duties, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to New Dawn than they had yet to understand, and she was at the center of it. Just then, a piercing scream cut through the morning air, a sound of terror that stopped Mira in her tracks. It came from the direction of the geological survey site where Nia Patel was working. The scream was a stark reminder that whatever was happening on New Dawn, they were all part of it, and the mysteries of this planet were just beginning to unfold. The scream echoed through the camp, a chilling reminder of their vulnerability. As Mira rushed towards the source of the sound, her heart pounded in her chest. The sight that greeted her was horrifying. Nia lay on the ground, a deep gash across her side, blood staining the alien soil. A sense of dread washed over Mira as she rushed to Nia's side.
Someone call Dr. Lee!
She shouted. As she knelt beside Nia, she couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. The way Nia lay there, unconscious and bleeding, reminded her of a scene from a nightmare. A nightmare where she had seen her brother Kai, lying lifeless, his body twisted and broken.
Nia, can you hear me?
Mira asked, her voice trembling. Nia's eyes fluttered open, and she looked at Mira with a look of terror.
It was him.
She whispered, her voice barely audible.
He's back.
Mira's heart sank.
Who? Who's back?
Nia's eyes widened, and she tried to speak, but no sound came out. She was struggling to breathe, her face pale and clammy. Just then, Dr. Lee arrived, his face etched with concern.
We need to stabilize her here before we move her,
he commanded, his hands already at work applying pressure to the wound.
This is bad. We can't treat this here. We need the Pioneer Dream's medical bay.
He quickly assessed Nia's injuries and ordered her to be transported to the medical bay on the Pioneer's Dream. As Mira watched the medical team load Nia onto the shuttle, she couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was at work. The attack on Nia wasn't a random act of violence. It was a deliberate act, a message. But what was that message? And who or what was sending it? Mira Chen, still reeling from her own mysterious experience, felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. The reality of Nia's injury seemed to validate her earlier vision. Was there something malevolent about this planet? As the shuttle ascended, leaving the violet sky behind for the darkness of space, the mood inside was somber. Dr. Lee worked tirelessly, his focus solely on Nia, whose breathing was shallow but steady. The medical bay on the Pioneer's Dream was a stark contrast to the makeshift facilities on New Dawn. equipped with advanced technology that could offer Nia a chance at survival. Chapter 6. The Wound of New Dawn. Back on the planet, the camp was abuzz with a new tension. James O'Donnell, the historian, was documenting the day's events, his voice low.
This will be a dark chapter in our story. We came for a new beginning, but it seems the unknown has its own plans.
Luna Martinez was visibly shaken, her usual optimism dimmed.
What could have done this? We've seen no sign of aggressive wildlife.
Adrian Locke, the scientist, was already theorizing, his scientific mind trying to rationalize the situation.
Could it be a geological anomaly, a sharp rock, or an unexpected gas emission causing hallucinations and injuries?
But it was Commander Vance who was visibly reevaluating everything. She paced near the communication station, waiting for updates from the ship. Her mind kept circling back to Mira's report.
Mira's vision, it might not have been just stress. If there's something about this planet affecting us, we need to know. We've been too complacent with the wonders and forgot the dangers.
Inside the Pioneer's dream, Dr. Lee used the ship's diagnostic tools to assess Nia's condition. The gash was deep, but no vital organs seemed to be critically damaged. Dr. Lee's expression was one of cautious relief when he announced,
She's stable for now. We'll need to keep her under observation, but she's a fighter.
Back in New Dawn, Elias, standing by Mira, spoke quietly.
Whatever is happening, we're in it together. We'll figure this out, Mira, just like you said about Kai. We keep building, we keep dreaming, but now we have to do it with our eyes wide open.
Mira nodded, her heart heavy. The encounter with her brother now felt not just like a personal experience, but potentially a warning. Her skepticism about the planet's benign nature had vanished. If visions could manifest, if the ground could turn treacherous, what else was New Dawn hiding? As they awaited Nia's prognosis, the community on New Dawn and the crew on the Pioneer's Dream were united by a new resolve. They had come to this world to start anew, but the reality was that their new home was as mysterious and potentially as dangerous as the cosmos itself. The adventure they had signed up for was now tinged with the urgency of survival and the quest for understanding the true nature of Proxima Centauri B. The dusk at New Dawn was not just the end of day, but a harbinger of secrets yet to be uncovered. As the sky bled into shades of deep violet and crimson, Commander Alara Vance and Luna Martinez ventured into the grove where Nia's fate had taken a dark turn. Each step they took was measured, their breaths shallow with anticipation, as if the air itself was charged with the unknown. Elara, whose leadership had always been her armor, now wore her concern like a cloak. Her eyes, usually so sure, darted around, seeking signs of what might lie beneath the surface of their new world. Luna, who had always found beauty in the alien, now found herself looking for omens in the bioluminescent flora that glowed with an otherworldly light, as if warning of what lay in the shadows. They reached the center of the grove, where the air seemed to grow thick with the scent of the planet's unique flora. Then, from the twilight, emerged Captain Jonathan Blake, lost to time but now standing before them, his uniform unmarred by the years, his face a mirror of the past. Yet there was an emptiness in his eyes, a void where there should have been recognition.
Jonathan?
Alara's voice was a whisper, laced with disbelief and a flicker of hope that this might be a dream, not a portent of things to come. His smile was the same, yet it didn't reach his eyes.
Elara, I've been here, but where I can't say,
He said, his words like the first notes of a melody that promised to be both beautiful and terrifying. Luna, her curiosity laced with dread, questioned,
How can this be? You disappeared years ago.
Jonathan's gaze was distant, looking past them into a void only he could see.
I don't know how I returned, but I'm here now.
His presence was as real as the ground beneath their feet, yet his explanation was as ethereal as the mist that now began to curl around them. The grove seemed to hold its breath as they spoke, the rustling leaves whispering of secrets long buried. When Jonathan touched Elara, the warmth of his hand was undeniable, yet the moment felt like a dream about to shatter. Then, as if he were never there, he faded into the twilight and a faint scent that seemed to beckon from the past. Elara and Luna stood.
This can't be just our minds.
Luna murmured, her voice trembling with the weight of what they had witnessed and what it might mean. Back at the camp, the experience was shared as evidence of an encounter that seemed to herald more questions than answers. The colonists spoke in hushed tones, their words laced with the fear that their new home might not be as benign as they hoped. The night sky above was a canvas of unknown threats, each star a silent witness to the growing unease. As darkness fully embraced new dawn, an urgent call from Dr. Samuel Lee on the Pioneer's Dream sliced through the tension.
Commander, you need to come back up here immediately. Nia has woken up, but she's in distress. She was screaming, yelling something about, "Someone is out to kill us." We had to sedate her.
The words echoed like a prophecy, Nia's warning a chilling echo of the day's events. Elara's expression hardened. The implications were clear. They were not alone. Perhaps not even safe.
We need to solve this, now.
She said, her voice a command mixed with a plea to the universe to reveal its secrets before it was too late. As Elara and Luna prepared to return to the ship, the colony was left with a sense of foreboding, the night now a cloak over mysteries yet to unfold. The stars above offered no solace, only a reminder of how vast and unknowable the cosmos was, and how little they understood about the shadows lurking at the edges of their perception. Chapter 7. Whispers of Discord. The morning on New Dawn broke with an urgency that seemed to permeate the very air, the sun of Proxima Centauri casting long, ominous shadows over the colony. Elias Chen, now a figure of respect and burgeoning leadership, had been tasked by Commander Elara Vance with a critical role: to assist where needed, and to keep a pulse on the colony's morale and concerns amid the recent unsettling events. Elias, his features sharp with the weight of responsibility, moved through the camp, his steps purposeful, yet weighed down by the gravity of his task. His first stop was at the hydroponic farm, where Luna Martinez was working with a small group. The once vibrant space was now tinged with tension, the plants seeming to reflect the colony's unease as they bent under the weight of their own growth.
Luna, how are things here?
Elias asked, his voice calm but his eyes scanning for signs of distress. Luna, her hands covered in soil, looked up, her usual enthusiasm dimmed.
We're managing, but the plants, they've been behaving strangely since Nia's incident. Some are wilting, others growing too fast. It's like the planet itself is reacting to our fears.
Her voice was a whisper, as if afraid to provoke whatever force was at play. Elias nodded, noting the concern.
Keep an eye on them. Let me know if anything changes.
He moved on, his mind already calculating how to report this to Vance. Next, he visited Mira Chen at the engineering station, where the hum of machinery usually brought a sense of progress. Now the sounds were discordant, machines stuttering, as if in protest to the colony's discord.
Mira, any issues with the equipment?
He inquired, his tone professional, masking his growing concern. Mira, her red hair tied back tightly, looked up from a console, her eyes shadowed with worry.
We've had power fluctuations, Elias. It's not just the machines. It's like the ground itself is unstable. And after what happened with Jonathan, I can't shake this feeling we're not alone.
Elias offered a reassuring hand on her shoulder.
Stay vigilant. We'll figure this out.
His words were meant to comfort, but he felt the weight of his promise like a physical burden. As he continued his rounds, the whispers followed him. But before heading to the medical tent, Elias decided to check in at the kitchen, where Akari Sato, a 20-year-old Japanese singer, was helping to prepare the day's meals. Her presence had always been a source of light in the colony, her songs lifting spirits during the long, dark nights. However, as Elias entered, he saw Akari drop her tray, the clatter echoing in the tense silence. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face.
Elias-san, I was so hopeful about this new beginning, but now I'm so scared.
She confessed, her voice trembling. Elias approached her, offering a comforting smile.
Akari, perhaps you need something to take your mind off this. We all do. Why don't you sing for us tonight during supper? It might help everyone feel a bit better.
Akari wiped her tears, nodding slowly.
Hi, I can do that. Maybe my music can bring some comfort.
Elias felt a small relief at the prospect.
Good. It'll be something to look forward to.
He then continued to the medical tent, where the staff were overwhelmed, dealing with a sudden uptick in psychological complaints. But Elias's thoughts were with Nia Patel, who was still aboard the Pioneer's Dream in the medical bay with Commander Alara Vance and Dr. Samuel Lee. Later, finding a quiet moment, Elias used the telecom to connect with Vance on the Pioneer's Dream. The screen flickered to life, showing Vance in the medical bay, her expression one of grave concern, with Nia resting behind her, sedated but visibly troubled even in sleep.
Commander, it's more than we thought.
Elias began, his voice steady, but the urgency clear.
Luna's plants are reacting to something unseen. Mira's reporting equipment malfunctions, possibly tied to the planet itself. Back here, there's a rise in psychological issues. People are seeing things, feeling watched. It's like this planet is playing with our minds, our fears.
Vance listened, her eyes narrowing with each detail. She glanced briefly at Nia before turning back to the screen.
And the morale?
Shaken,
Elias admitted.
There's fear, Commander. People are seeing things, feeling watched. Naya's warning. It's on everyone's mind.
Elara's face was a mask of contemplation.
We need to keep this under control, Elias. I want you to continue these checks, but also start organizing small groups. We need to find a way to reassure everyone, maybe even use these phenomena to our advantage. Monitor any new developments closely. I'll keep an eye on Nia here. She might hold more answers than we realize.
Elias nodded, his resolve strengthening.
I'll do that. But we need to act quickly. This isn't just about keeping morale. It's about understanding what this place is doing to us.
The conversation ended, but the weight of his findings hung in the air. Elias returned to the camp, his mind racing with plans to stabilize the colony. He started by forming a group to discuss the phenomena, inviting those who had experienced visions or anomalies to share. hoping to find a pattern or at least a sense of community in their shared experiences. As night fell, the stars of Proxima Centauri offered little comfort, each one a reminder of how vast and unknown their new home was. Elias moved among the colonists, a beacon of calm in the brewing storm. But his mind was anything but calm as he thought about the threat they were facing. At supper, Akari took the stage, her voice a melody of hope in the night, soothing the frayed nerves of New Dawn's inhabitants.
Touchdown on Proxima B. Red dust kissed our feet. No gardens bloom here yet, but this home feels so sweet. After 27 years we found a place in this arid land we embrace. It's not much, but it's ours to see. Thankful hearts on Proxima B. Stars above an endless spark, wanders in the dark. No flowers, but we got time to grow hope like sacred rhyme. After 27 years we found a place in this arid land we embrace. It's not much, but it's ours to see. Thankful hearts on Proxima B. Stars above an endless spark, wanders in the dark. No flowers, but we got time to grow hope like sacred rhyme. After 27 years we found a place in this arid land we embrace. It's not much, but it's ours to see. Thankful hearts on Proxima B.
Chapter 8. A Haunting Revelation. The medical bay of the pioneer's dream was a sterile, silent chamber, a stark contrast to the chaos that had gripped New Dawn. Nia Patel lay on the medical bed, her breathing shallow, her body still under the influence of the sedative. Commander Alara Vance stood beside her, her expression a mix of concern and determination.
She's stable,
Dr. Lee reported, his voice low.
but she's been having these episodes, nightmares, I suppose you could call them. She's muttering about a man, a name, something about a hunter.
Ilara nodded, her mind racing.
We need to wake her up. We need to know what's happening.
Dr. Lee hesitated.
I'm not sure that's wise, Commander. She's still recovering from the attack.
We don't have time for caution, Doctor.
Ilara replied, her voice firm.
We need answers.
With a heavy sigh, Dr. Lee nodded.
Very well, but we'll monitor her closely.
The sedative was slowly reduced, and as it wore off, Nia began to stir. Her eyes fluttered open, and she looked around, disoriented.
Where am I?
She asked, her voice weak.
You're on the Pioneer's dream.
Ilara replied, her voice gentle.
You were injured on New Dawn.
Nia's eyes widened in recognition.
The attack. It wasn't an accident, was it?
Elara hesitated.
No, Nia, it wasn't.
Nia's breathing quickened.
Who did it? What did they want?
Elara took a deep breath.
We don't know for sure, but we're here to find out.
Nia's eyes narrowed.
You don't know?
Elara shook her head.
We're hoping you can tell us.
Nia was silent for a moment. Then her voice grew soft.
It was Silas.
Elara's eyebrows raised. She asked inquisitively,
Silas? Who's Silas?
Nia's eyes filled with fear.
He was a man I knew from my childhood. He was obsessed with me. He would follow me everywhere, watch me from the shadows.
Elara was stunned.
And he's the one who attacked you on New Dawn?
Nia nodded, her voice trembling.
Yes, I saw his face. It was him.
Elara's mind raced.
But Silas was arrested and executed a week before we left Earth,
she said, her voice filled with confusion. Nia's eyes widened.
Yes, he was. For murder of a child from my neighborhood. But how could he have attacked me then?
Elara shook her head.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense, but something is clearly wrong. Something is happening on New Dawn, something we don't understand.
Nia's expression turned to fear.
What if he's not really dead? What if he's somehow still out there?
Elara reached out and took Nia's hand.
We'll figure it out, Nia. We'll get to the bottom of this.
Nia squeezed Elara's hand.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Elara smiled.
We're all in this together, Nia. We'll get through this.
As Elara left the medical bay, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this mystery, something dark and sinister. The attack on Nia wasn't a random act of violence. It was a deliberate act, a message. But what was that message? And who or what was sending it? The answers to these questions could determine the fate of New Dawn and its inhabitants. As Elara walked down the corridor, she knew that she and her crew were facing a challenge unlike any they had ever encountered before. A challenge that would test their courage, their resilience, and their very souls. Chapter 9. Echoes of the Abyss. A week had passed since the last of the unsettling visions had plagued New Dawn, and the colony was still grappling with the unknown. Elias Chen, having taken on the role of leading the exploration teams, had spent days combing through the areas where the hallucinations were most potent. Yet each day ended with more questions than answers. The routine was grueling, the landscape of New Dawn both beautiful and foreboding, with its violet skies and the silent, towering mountains that seemed to watch over them. However, the team's latest directive came from the Pioneer's Dream in orbit, which had detected unusual energy fluctuations approximately 300 kilometers from the main base. Elias, along with Mira Chen, Luna Martinez, Adrian Locke, and a small security detail including James O'Donnell, prepared for an expedition that would take them deeper into the mysteries of their new home. They loaded into the rover, a rugged vehicle designed for the harsh terrains of Proxima Centauri B. Its wheels crunching the alien soil as they set off. The journey was long, and the landscape morphed from the relatively familiar plains around the colony to a more alien, almost surreal environment. The ground was littered with strange crystalline formations that shimmered with an inner light, casting eerie reflections on the rover's metallic surface. As they approached the coordinates, the energy readings on their instruments spiked, confirming they were on the right path. Their destination was a cave, its entrance partially hidden by a curtain of vines that glowed with a soft, bioluminescent hue. The team donned their gear, lights, and scanners, stepping into the darkness with a mix of anticipation and dread. Inside, the air was cool and damp, the cave walls adorned with what appeared at first to be natural patterns. But upon closer inspection, Adrian, with his keen scientific eye, identified these as alien script.
This isn't just decoration, it's language, a record of some kind,
he exclaimed, his voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space. James, with his camera, began documenting every symbol, every curve of the alien writing. The others followed, their lights dancing across the walls, capturing images and taking samples. The script was unlike anything human, flowing like water yet structured like the stars, suggesting a civilization with both art and science in its language. As they ventured deeper, the cave narrowed, the air growing heavier with each step. Suddenly, a sound, not quite a growl, not quite a screech, reverberated through the cave. The team halted, their instincts on high alert. Then, from the shadows, a creature emerged, a manifestation of nightmares. It was a grotesque amalgamation of limbs and eyes, its body covered in scales that seemed to shift and change color, reflecting the light in a way that made it appear as if it was part of the cave itself. Its eyes, numerous and glowing with an unnatural light, locked onto them, assessing, threatening. Without warning, it lunged. The team scattered, but not before it managed to swipe at one of the security personnel, Marco, tearing into his suit with a claw that seemed to be made of living shadows. He screamed, the sound amplifying the chaos as blood mixed with the dust on the cavern floor. Elias, with a calm that belied his fear, shouted commands.
Fall back, form a defensive line.
He pulled out a shock baton, the only effective weapon they had against such an unknown adversary. Mira, quick on her feet, managed to drag Marco away from the creature's reach, applying a makeshift tourniquet from her belt. Adrian tried to analyze the creature, shouting over the pandemonium.
It's biomatter, but it's alive, it's thinking.
His voice was a mix of terror and fascination. Luna, using her agility, dodged another attack, managing to throw a tracking device onto the creature. It hissed, its many eyes narrowing as it tried to dislodge the device. The fight was chaotic, the creature relentless. Another colonist, Sarah, was knocked down, her arm broken as she tried to shield herself from a particularly violent swipe. The creature's movements were erratic, almost as if it was learning from each encounter, adapting. James, still filming, captured the horror, narrating under his breath.
This is our terror, our fear given form. We are not alone on New Dawn.
Seeing more shadows moving deeper in the cave, Elias made a tactical decision.
We're falling back. We can't fight this here, not with more of them coming.
The team agreed, the urgency of their situation palpable. They helped Sarah and Marco, who were both in severe pain but conscious, back towards the entrance. As they retreated, the creature did not pursue, perhaps content with having driven them away from its lair, or perhaps waiting for another, more opportune moment. The team emerged into the sunlight, relief mixed with dread as they realized this was just the beginning of understanding what lurked beneath New Dawn's surface. Back at the rover, first aid was administered. Marco's wound was deep, and Sarah's arm needed immediate attention. They contacted the base, requesting medical evacuation. As they waited for the shuttle, Elias looked back at the cave, his mind racing.
We need to understand this. It's not just about survival now. It's about knowing what we're living with.
His words were firm, his resolve clear. They had documented alien writing, encountered a nightmare made flesh, and now knew that New Dawn was not just a new world, but a new frontier of fear and discovery. The shuttle arrived, its engines roaring in the quiet of the alien landscape, taking the injured back to the colony. The others stayed behind to secure the rover and gather their thoughts, the weight of what they had seen settling in. They knew this was just one chapter in a much larger, more dangerous story. The expedition team would return to New Dawn's base with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain. They were not the only sentient beings on this planet, and the next steps they took could either lead to understanding or further into the abyss of fear and confrontation.